I'm sitting here on my porch in Scottsdale, watching the cars go by. My name is Bernice Ferguson. It's a beautiful place, the kind of place you work your whole life to relax in. But I'm not feeling very relaxed today. My mind keeps drifting back to my son, Jeffrey. I've always prided myself on how I raised him. I wasn't a perfect mother, heavens no, but I was a present one. I was the mom at every single one of his little league games, even the ones in the pouring rain. I was the one who stayed up until midnight, helping him build that ridiculous volcano for the science fair, the one that ended up leaking all over the carpet. I put my own career on the back burner for 18 years because I truly believed that raising a good, thoughtful man was the most important job in the world. I taught him that family isn't just an obligation. It's a privilege. You show up for each other. You remember the little things because, in the end, they are the big things. At least, I thought I did. This birthday, everything changed. I'd always looked forward to my birthdays. Not for big, flashy parties. I'm not that kind of person. I just liked the feeling of being remembered. A nice card. Maybe a phone call from the grandkids. Jeffrey cooking me dinner like he used to. Just a simple, nice day. But this year, something felt off. I had this little knot in my stomach, and I couldn't figure out why. I'd been looking forward to seeing them. I knew they were busy, of course. Jeffrey's a partner at his firm now, and his wife, Diane, is a high-powered real estate agent. They're a modern-day power couple, and I was so proud. But I missed them. I miss my son. Now, I have to be honest. There was something else on my mind, too. Just last week, I'd been on the phone with Diane's sister. You know how people talk, and she was just gushing. For her mother's birthday, Diane had bought her a spa day. And not just any spa day. A full-day, $1,000 package at one of those fancy resorts here in Scottsdale. The works. Massages, facials, mud baths, the whole 9 yards. When I heard that, my first thought was, my goodness, how incredibly generous. But my second thought, the one I felt a little guilty about, was, wow, I wonder what they're thinking of for my birthday. Now, please don't misunderstand me. I was not expecting a $1,000 spa day. Good grief, I'd be too embarrassed to even use it. But that gesture, it set a certain expectation in my mind. It showed a level of thoughtfulness, of planning. I started dreaming a little. Maybe they'd take me out to that new bistro I'd mentioned. Or maybe Jeffrey had remembered that mystery novel I'd pointed out at the bookstore last month. I was just excited to feel that same level of care. So, the day arrived. Jeffrey and Diane came over with the grandkids, who were a wonderful, noisy whirlwind, as always. They tackled me with hugs and gave me their crayon drawings, which I hung on the refrigerator immediately. They are my greatest joy. Then, Diane smiled and handed me a small, thin plastic bag, the kind you get at the dollar store, with the little handles that tear if you pull too hard. Happy birthday, Bernice, she said. She was smiling, but her eyes were already back on her phone, thumping away at an email. Thanks, Mom, Jeffrey added, but he was already halfway to the kitchen, trying to stop our little grandson from pulling all the magnets off the fridge. I reached into the bag. Inside, wrapped in a single sheet of crinkly white tissue paper, was a pair of pot holders. They were a faded yellow, with a cartoon chicken on them holding a sign that said, "What's cookin'?" I turned one over. The fabric was thin, and the little loop for hanging it was already fraying. And right there, stapled to the seam, was the price tag. Special value, $1. I just stared at them. I think my mouth went dry. I looked up. Diane was still typing. Jeffrey was pouring juice. They hadn't even stopped to watch me open it. I swallowed. "Oh," I said. My voice sounded thin. "How practical. We can always use more pot holders." "Great," Jeffrey called out from the kitchen. "Hey, Mom, speaking of, do you think you could watch the kids next Friday? Diane and I have a gala." And just like that, it was over. My birthday was over. They left a few hours later, after a quick store-bought cake. And now I'm sitting here on the porch. The pot holders are on the kitchen table inside. I can see them from here. $1. I want to be crystal clear. This is not about the money. It's not. I don't need or want their money. I would have wept with joy over a framed photo of my grandchildren. I would have treasured a handwritten letter from my son telling me he loved me. This was an afterthought. This was Diane at a red light, remembering it was my birthday, and handing Jeffrey a $5 bill to run into the dollar store. This was a gift you give to a coworker you barely know in a Secret Santa exchange. It's the thoughtlessness. And that's when the spa day came roaring back into my mind. $1,000 for her mother, $1 for me. The math of it is just so cruel, so clear. It feels like a statement. It feels like they're telling me my value. Diane's mother, who she sees twice a year, is worth $1,000 of luxury and relaxation. And me, Bernice, the woman who raised her husband, the woman who babysits for free every single time they call, I'm worth $1 of kitchen labor. I feel small. I feel betrayed. I gave up my dreams for that family. I was the woman who hosted every holiday, who stitched every Halloween costume, who listened to every teenage heartbreak. And now I'm just the help. I'm the woman who gets the dollar store pot holders. I'm not just disappointed. I'm hurt, deeply. And sitting here, for the very first time in my life, I feel completely and utterly invisible in my own family. I sat on that porch until the sun started to dip low, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The air got cooler, but I didn't move. I just kept thinking. My mind went back, years and years, back to a life that feels like it belonged to someone else. Before I was Jeffrey's mom, I was just Bernice. And I had plans. I had just gotten my associate's degree, and I was working as a paralegal at a small law firm. I loved it. I loved the research, the feeling of putting a case together. I was planning to go back to school at night, maybe even become a lawyer myself one day. My boss, Mr. Henderson, told me I had a knack for it. Then I got pregnant with Jeffrey, and in those days, you just didn't. You didn't try to juggle a high-pressure career and a newborn. My husband, God rest his soul, had a good job, and it was just expected. So I quit. I told myself it was just for a few years, just until Jeffrey started kindergarten. But just a few years turned into 5. Then Jeffrey started school, but he was a sensitive boy. He had a hard time adjusting. He'd get these terrible stomach aches every morning, and I'd be the one sitting in the nurse's office with him until he felt better. Then came Little League and the Boy Scouts and that science fair volcano. And every time I thought about dusting off my textbooks, something would come up. A big project he needed help with. A school play. A teenage heartbreak that required endless cups of cocoa and a listening ear. My husband and I talked about me going back to work, but we just never did. And I never pushed it. I told myself this was more important, and I believed it. The thing is, I never regretted it. Not really. Being Jeffrey's mother was my life's great work. But I did sacrifice. I sacrificed that sharp-minded girl who loved the law. I packed her away in a box right next to my old briefcase. I poured all that energy, all that ambition, all that knack into my son. And as I sat there, I realized the problem. The family dynamic, it's all shifted under my feet, and I never even noticed. When Jeffrey was young, I was the center of his world. I was mom. I was the person he came to for everything, advice, comfort, permission. I was the one who knew his favorite meal, what he was afraid of, what his dreams were. I was active. I was necessary. Now, I'm just sort of there. I'm the backdrop. I'm the person they call, not for advice, but for a favor. Mom, can you watch the kids? Mom, can you let the plumber in? Mom, can you pick up a gallon of milk? I've become a pair of hands. A convenience. I thought about Diane's mother. She lives in another state. She flies in twice a year, stays in a nice hotel, gets taken to fancy dinners, and is treated like a visiting queen. She is an event. She receives a $1,000 spa day because her visit is a special occasion. I live 15 minutes away. I'm not an event. I'm just Tuesday. I'm the reliable one, the one who always says yes, the one they don't have to try for. And I see it now. They don't see me as a person anymore. They see me as a resource. And the pot holders, that's what you give a resource. It's what you give the kitchen, help. I'm starting to wonder, have I been too passive? All these years, I've been the peacemaker. I never wanted to rock the boat. I didn't want to be a bother or seem needy. So when they'd call at the last minute, I'd say, of course. When they'd forget my birthday last year until 2 days later, I said, oh, it's no bother at all. I know you're busy. I'm the one who taught them they could treat me this way. I'm the one who taught them that my time, my feelings, myself wasn't as important as their needs. I've been so quiet for so long. I've let myself become invisible. This whole time, I've been waiting for them to see me, to appreciate me, to remember the woman who put her own dreams in a box for them. But sitting here, with the chill of the evening setting in, I'm realizing a terrible, simple truth. They won't see me unless I demand it. They won't value me unless I show them my own worth. This isn't just about a thoughtless gift anymore. It's about my entire life. It's about whether I'm going to spend the last chapters of it as Bernice or just as the help. And I'm not sure I'm willing to be the help any longer. I got up from that porch rocker. The stiffness in my knees was nothing compared to the new, sharp feeling in my chest. A decision. I couldn't just sit there and let this invisibility settle over me. This wasn't some stranger who had overlooked me. This was Jeffrey, my son. He would understand. He had to. He knew me. Maybe he just didn't realize how it looked. Maybe Diane had just grabbed the gift, and he hadn't even seen it. Yes, that was it. I just needed to talk to him. I went inside, my hand shaking just a little as I picked up my phone. I dialed his number, the one I know better than my own. He picked up on the third ring, sounding rushed, like he was in the car. Hey, Mom, what's up? I've only got a minute. I'm just heading into a meeting. That familiar knot in my stomach tightened. Oh, Jeffrey. I'm sorry. Is this a bad time? No, it's fine. What's going on? You okay? I took a breath. I'm okay. I wanted to talk to you about my birthday. There was a pause. I could hear a car horn in the background. My birthday? Yeah, it was nice, right? The kids loved seeing you. It was wonderful to see them, dear. It really was. But, Jeffrey, I wanted to talk about the gift you and Diane gave me. I heard him sigh. It was a small sound, but it felt like a door closing. The gift? The pot holders? What about them, Mom? Well, I started trying to keep my voice even. I was a little taken aback. Honey, taken aback? What do you mean? His voice was wary now. It wasn't about the money, Jeffrey. I promise you that. It felt like something you grab at the last second, with no thought. And my feelings were hurt. I waited. The silence on the line felt heavy. Mom, he finally said, and his tone had changed. It was defensive. What are you saying? We got you a gift. We came over. We brought the kids. I don't understand the problem. This was the hard part. Jeffrey, I said, my voice starting to tremble a little. I know that Diane gave her mother a $1,000 spa day, and I got dollar store pot holders. It It made me feel worthless. It made me feel like I don't matter to you. The explosion was instant. Oh my God. So that's what this is about. You're comparing gifts? Mom, that is completely different. And it's not fair. That's Diane's mother. But I am your mother. The words burst out of me, louder than I intended. And I'm telling you, you're being overly sensitive, he snapped. That phrase, overly sensitive, like my feelings were a fault, an illness. My God, Mom, he went on, his voice full of exasperation. It was just a pair of potholders. Diane was busy. I was busy. We have a million things going on right now. You know we love you. Why can't you just say thank you and let it go? You're making a huge deal out of absolutely nothing. Nothing. My entire life's work, my sacrifices, my love, my hurt, it was nothing. It was just an inconvenience for him, something to let go of. I couldn't speak. I just stood there in my kitchen, staring at the wall, gripping the phone. He didn't hear me. He didn't want to hear me. He hadn't heard a single word I actually said. He just heard a complaint. Mom, are you there? I couldn't find my voice. He sighed again, loud and impatient. Look, I've really got to go. My meeting is starting. We'll talk about this later, when you're feeling calmer. Love you. Bye. And he hung up. I stood there, listening to the dial tone. He didn't wait for me to say, I love you, too. He didn't wait for me to say anything. He just clicked off. The gift had been thoughtless. But this was a choice. He heard my pain, and he chose to dismiss it. He chose to call it nothing and hang up. The boy I'd stayed up with until midnight, building volcanoes, he was gone. In his place was a man who couldn't give me 2 minutes of his time. This was the real betrayal. This was the moment I knew. It wasn't just that I felt invisible. To my own son, I truly was. I didn't move for a long time after Jeffrey hung up. The silence in the kitchen was deafening. The hurt from his words was sharp, but something else was creeping in underneath it, a cold, hard clarity. My son had made his choice. He'd sided with Busy. He'd sided with Diane. I looked at the phone in my hand. I wasn't shaking anymore. I realized that if I was just being sensitive, then the problem must have been with Diane. She was the one who bought the potholders. She was the one who bought the spa day. Jeffrey was just following her lead. Fine. If I wanted respect, I had to go to the person who was actually in charge. I scrolled through my contacts and pressed Diane's name. She picked up almost instantly, her voice crisp and professional. Bernice. Hi. Everything okay? Jeffrey said you called him, but he was running to a meeting. So he had talked to her, or texted, more likely. They'd already circled the wagons. They'd already framed the narrative. Mom's upset. Hello, Diane, I said. I was surprised at how steady my own voice sounded. I'm calling because I need to talk to you about the birthday gift. Oh, this. Her laugh was short and sharp. It sounded like ice cubes hitting a glass. Bernice, Jeffrey told me you were upset. Honestly, I'm a little surprised. I didn't think you were the kind of person to get hung up on things. What kind of things are those, Diane? You know, gifts, material things, she said, her voice smooth. We were there. We brought the kids. I thought that was what mattered. There it was. The accusation. She was twisting it, making me sound materialistic, making me sound ungrateful for seeing my own grandchildren. Diane, I said, keeping my voice low and even. You gave your mother $1,000 spa day. The line went quiet for just a second. And she finally said, her voice turning hard. And you gave me dollar store potholders. I'm not asking you to do the math, Diane. I'm asking you to look at the message that sends. The message, she scoffed. Bernice, I don't know if you're aware, but I am an extremely busy woman. I run my own real estate team. I had 3 closings last week. My mother's birthday was planned months in advance by my sister. For your birthday, yes, I'll admit, it slipped my mind until the last minute. It slipped her mind. I didn't have time, she continued, her voice picking up speed. I didn't have time to run all over Scottsdale looking for some perfect, thoughtful gift that, frankly, you probably wouldn't even like. I grabbed something practical. I figured you, of all people, would appreciate practical. Practical. There was that word again. So, I said, the pieces clicking into place with a dreadful sound. Your mother gets luxury, and I get practical. My mother, Diane said, and her voice was sharp and final now. My mother doesn't get to see me every week. My mother isn't the one I can call at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, in a total panic, to watch the kids when a client calls. That is a different arrangement. An arrangement. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't an arrangement. It was my family. It was my grandchildren. An arrangement. I whispered. Look, I didn't mean it like that. She backtracked, but the damage was done. The truth was out. I just mean you're here. You're part of the system. We count on you. I thought you liked being needed. And there it was. It was so much worse than I thought. This wasn't about love. It wasn't even about thoughtlessness. It was a transaction. I was the backup caregiver. I was the reliable system. I was the free on-call babysitter who lived 15 minutes away. Diane's mother, the one she had to impress, got the spa day. The one who did the actual work of grandparenting, got the pot holders. It wasn't a gift. It was a uniform. She didn't see me as her husband's mother. She didn't see me as an equal or even as family. I was staff. Bernice, she asked, hearing my silence. Thank you, Diane, I said. My voice was completely flat. Thank you for what? She asked, confused. For the clarity. I pressed the end button before she could say another word. The chasm wasn't just between me and her. It felt like it was splitting my whole life in two. I hung up the phone on Diane, and it was like a final click into place. The hurt I felt from Jeffrey's call was a hot, sharp pain. This was different. This was a cold, hard, clarifying ache. I wasn't family. I was an arrangement. I was the system. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept turning her words over and over in my mind. Arrangement. System. We count on you. I didn't sleep the next night, either. I'd get up at 3 a.m, make a cup of tea I didn't want, and just sit in the dark of my kitchen. I'd look at the nice cabinets, the granite countertops. My husband and I had worked our whole lives for this house, for this security. We'd saved, we'd invested, we'd planned. And the entire plan, our whole life's work, was to go to Jeffrey, which meant in reality it would go to Jeffrey and Diane. The thought of them, after I'm gone, living in this house, the thought of Diane using our hard-earned money to buy her mother another $1,000 spa day, it was like a splinter of ice in my heart. It just felt wrong, not just unfair, fundamentally wrong. A new thought pushed its way into my mind. It was a thought so big and so final, it almost scared me. My will. I hadn't looked at that document in 20 years, not since my husband passed. It was in the bottom drawer of my desk, in a heavy manila envelope. It was set in stone, but stones can be moved. The next morning, I pulled that envelope out. I found my lawyer's business card, the one he'd given me after we settled the estate. My hand was on the phone, but I couldn't dial. I just sat there, my hand frozen, hovering over the numbers. A wave of guilt, so strong it almost made me sick, washed over me. What was I doing? Was I really going to do this? Was I really going to punish my only son, the boy I'd raised, over a single, stupid, thoughtless gift. Am I being cruel? Am I just becoming one of those bitter, vindictive old women you read about? The kind who uses her money as a weapon? I thought, two wrongs don't make a right. Maybe I should just be the bigger person. Maybe I should just let it go. I'd be risking my entire relationship with my son, maybe even my grandchildren, over a pair of pot holders. I was so close to tearing up that business card. I told myself I was just angry and I shouldn't make decisions. When I'm angry, I got up to get a glass of water. And that's when I saw them. They were still on the kitchen counter, right where I'd tossed them. The faded yellow pot holders. The cartoon chicken. What's cooking? I picked one up. I felt the thin fabric, looked at the $1 tag that was still stapled to the seam. And in that instant, the guilt just evaporated. It was replaced by something quiet and hard and absolutely final. This wasn't about anger. Anger is hot, and it fades. This was about dignity. This wasn't a punishment. It was a correction. It wasn't about the pot holders. It was about the $1,000 spa day. It was about Diane's voice saying arrangement. It was about Jeffrey's voice saying overly sensitive. It was about the fact that they felt completely entitled to my time, my home, my energy, and ultimately my money, all while not being able to give me 5 minutes of genuine thought. They valued my entire lifetime of love and sacrifice at $1. I was not going to let that be the final say on my life. I was not going to let them treat me like a free service in life and then cash me in like a winning lottery ticket when I'm gone. My hand wasn't shaking anymore. I walked back to the desk. I picked up the phone. I dialed the number. A woman answered. Law Offices of Henderson and Associates. Hello, I said, my voice clear and steady. This is Bernice Ferguson. I need to make an appointment with Mr. Henderson. I'd like to make some revisions to my will. It took less than 10 minutes for them to get to my house. I had called Jeffrey and told him simply that I had made an appointment with my lawyer to make changes to my estate, and that I thought he should know. The silence on the other end was heavy, and then he just said, "We're coming over." He didn't knock. He used his old key and came right in. Diane was on his heels, her coat still buttoned, her expensive purse clutched in her hand. Jeffrey's face was a color I'd never seen before, a deep, splotchy red. "Are you out of your mind?" he yelled. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask how I was. He just exploded. "You're changing the will? Over a pair of pot holders? I cannot believe you, Mom. This is the most childish, petty overreaction I have ever seen in my life. Jeffrey, please lower your voice. This is my home." "No, I will not lower my voice," he shot back. "We told you we were sorry. It was a small mistake. A stupid, thoughtless gift, okay? We admitted it. You're going to throw away your entire family over a $1 mistake." He was pacing my living room, running his hands through his hair, looking at me like I was a stranger. Then Diane stepped forward, placing a perfectly manicured hand on her husband's arm. She wasn't yelling. She was worse. Her voice was cold, smooth, and just dripping with fake concern. "Jeffrey, honey, calm down," she said. "Your mother is she's upset. Let's all just talk." She turned those sharp, real estate agent eyes on me. "Bernice," she started, as if she were speaking to a difficult client. "I know you're still hurt. We understand that. But this," she gestured around the room, "this is not who you are. This isn't what family does. Families don't threaten each other with money." There it was. The guilt trip. She was already spinning it. I was the one threatening them. "You're making a terrible mistake, Bernice," she said, her voice dropping to a confidential whisper. "You're letting one tiny misunderstanding destroy your relationship with your only son. Is that what you want? To punish your own grandchildren? Think about the values you're teaching them. that it's okay to hold a grudge. That money is a weapon to be used against people you love. It was a masterful performance. She was painting me as the villain. Me, the one obsessed with money. Me, the one tearing the family apart with my grudge. I looked at my son, red-faced and angry. I looked at my daughter-in-law, cold and calculating. And the old Bernice, the one who would have burst into tears, the one who would have apologized just to make the yelling stop, the one who would have said, "You're right, I'm sorry, I'll fix it," she was just gone. I stayed right where I was, sitting in my armchair. I looked up at them. "I'm not going to argue with you," I said. My voice was quiet. It was so quiet they both had to stop and lean in a little to hear me. It was perfectly calm. "This is not a mistake," I said, looking right at Diane. "And it's not an overreaction," I said, turning my gaze to Jeffrey. "This isn't about the potholders. I tried to tell you both that, but you wouldn't listen. This is about being invisible. This is about being called an arrangement." I saw Diane flinch. It was the first real emotion I'd seen from her. "This is about my time," I continued, "my care and my life being treated as a free on-call service. And this house, this estate, it is my legacy. It's my husband's legacy. It's the one thing I have left that is completely 100% mine. And it will be respected, even if I am not." Jeffrey opened his mouth, but I kept going. "I'm not doing this out of anger. I did it because I needed to feel heard. And you too," I looked from his face to hers, "prove to me that you cannot hear my voice. You can't see my value. The only thing you seem to understand is a closed door." So I closed one. Jeffrey just stared at me. He had nothing to say. He was so used to me backing down. He had no script for this new Bernice. Diane's mask of concern dropped. Her face was pure fury. "You will regret this, Bernice," she hissed. I looked at her, and for the first time, I wasn't scared of her. "No, Diane," I said, "I don't think I will." They left. This time, they slammed the door so hard, a picture frame on the wall rattled. And I just sat there, in the quiet. The quiet in my house after they left was loud. For the first time, I felt like I had taken up space in my own life. I felt strong. But that feeling, as I learned, is a lot easier to hold on to when you're alone. A few weeks went by in silence. No calls. No, "Can you watch the kids?" Texts. Nothing. Then came my grandson's 5th birthday party. It was at one of those indoor trampoline parks. Of course, I was going. This wasn't about him. I would never, ever let this poison touch my grandchildren. The second I walked in, I felt it. The air just changed. It used to be so easy. I'd walk in, and Jeffrey would yell, "Mom's here. The cavalry has arrived," and give me a big hug. The grandkids would swarm me. Even Diane would give me a warm, "Bernice, thank God you're here. Can you watch the presents?" This time, the conversation just died. Jeffrey was on the other side of the room, talking to another father. He saw me. He didn't smile. He just gave me one tight, brief nod. A nod you'd give a stranger in an elevator. Diane, she didn't look at me at all. She was hyper-focused on handing out plates of pizza, her smile bright and fake, her back pointed directly at me. I went and found my grandson and gave him his gift and a huge hug. But even he seemed to notice. He was quieter than usual, looking from my face to his father's and back again, his little forehead wrinkled with a confusion he couldn't possibly understand. The entire 2 hours were like that. It was awful. I felt like a ghost. All the other parents and grandparents were chatting, laughing, but I was on an island. Jeffrey and Diane, and I stood at opposite ends of the room, like magnets pushing each other away. All the easy chatter, the shared family history, the laughter, it was gone. It was replaced by a strained, cold, palpable tension. This was the sound of a family cracking. By the time I got back in my car to go home, that feeling of strength I'd had in my living room, it was gone. All I felt was a deep, aching disappointment. I'd made my stand, and this was the cost. I sat in my dark living room for a long time. I hadn't just stood up for myself. I'd blown everything up, and the self-doubt came rushing in. Was I too drastic? I saw my son's face, not angry like before, but just cold, empty. I thought of my grandson's confused little eyes. Have I broken my family? Have I ruined everything over my own pride? Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just a bitter old woman. I was supposed to be the peacemaker, the one who held everyone together. And here I was, the one who had planted the bomb. The guilt was so heavy, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I'd won, but I'd lost everything. I sat there, mourning the loss of that easy family I used to have. And then a new thought, quiet and clear, cut right through the guilt. What was that family I was mourning? It was a family where Bernice was quiet. It was a family where Bernice said yes to everything. It was a family where Bernice was a system, an arrangement. The easy dynamic I missed, it was only easy for them. It was a peace that was built day after day on my silence. It was a happiness that required me to be invisible. I hadn't broken anything. I had just stopped being the only one holding it all together. The tension at that party wasn't a sign that I had done something wrong. It was the sound of the old, unfair power dynamic finally falling apart. I realized sitting there in the dark that setting a boundary isn't an act of selfishness. It's an act of self-love. It's the only way you can ever build something real. And I'd rather have a real, difficult, honest relationship than a fake, easy one where I didn't exist at all. That clarity I found in the dark, that realization that self-love wasn't selfish, it changed me. But it didn't fix anything overnight. The silence from Jeffrey and Diane was complete. The phone just stopped ringing. No more last-minute babysitting requests. No more, "Hey, Mom, we're swinging by." Nothing. The first week, I'll admit, it was awful. Every time the phone rang, my heart would leap, and it would just be a telemarketer. The old Bernice would have sat by that phone, wringing her hands, sinking deeper into the hurt, just waiting for them to apologize. She would have caved. She would have called and said, "I'm sorry, let's just forget it." But I wasn't the old Bernice. I looked at all the quiet in my house, all this empty time that used to be filled with their needs. And I thought, well, what am I going to do with it? It was a terrifying question. Then my old friend Marge called. We'd been friends for 40 years, but I'd been so busy being grandma that I hadn't seen her for lunch in almost 6 months. "Bernice," she said, "you've fallen off the face of the earth. We're having our book club meeting at my place on Wednesday. We're discussing that new mystery novel. I'm not taking no for an answer." My first instinct was to say, "Oh, I can't. I should stay near the phone." And I stopped myself. "You know what, Marge?" I said, "I'd love to." I went to that book club, and it was wonderful. We talked about the book, yes, but we also talked about the news, about our lives. These were sharp, funny, interesting women. I had forgotten what it felt like to just be Bernice, a person with opinions, not just a mother, not just a grandmother. So I kept going. I had lunch with Marge. I joined the local library's volunteer program, just sorting books, but it felt good to be useful in a way that wasn't tied to my family. I went to a matinee by myself in the middle of the day, and a strange thing happened. I found peace. My happiness wasn't sitting by the phone anymore. It wasn't waiting for an invitation. It was mine. It was in my book club and my walks in the park and my quiet cups of coffee on the porch in the morning. I was building a life, my own life. And I realized from this new, stronger place that I didn't want to be estranged from my son. But I knew with absolute certainty I could never go back to the way things were. The old silence was broken. Now, it was time to build something new. So I did it. I picked up the phone and I called Jeffrey. He picked up, his voice wary. "Mom." "Hello, Jeffrey," I said. My voice was calm and steady. "I'm not calling to argue. I am calling to invite you and Diane to come to my house this Sunday at 2 o'clock. Without the children. I'd like to talk." I don't know, Mom. Things are pretty busy." "I understand," I said, and this was the new part. 2 o'clock on Sunday. If you can't make it, just let me know. But the invitation is there. I hope you'll come. I didn't plead. I didn't cry. I stated my terms. I hung up. On Sunday, at 2 o'clock on the dot, my doorbell rang. They looked nervous. They sat on my couch, stiff and quiet, like they were at a job interview. I wasn't nervous. I was in my home. I was in control. I poured us all coffee and sat down in my armchair. "Thank you both for coming. I wanted to do this because I love you, Jeffrey, and I want to be in your lives and in the lives of my grandchildren. But things have to change. The way we were operating, it's over." They just stared. "So," I said, taking a sip of coffee, "here are the new rules. It's very simple. First, I am your mother, and I am your grandmother. I am not an on-call service." I looked right at Diane. "My time is as valuable as yours. From now on, if you would like me to watch the children, you will ask me at least 1 week in advance. You will ask if I am available. You will not tell me you need me. And if I say no, you will respect that answer, without guilt." Diane's mouth opened, then closed. "Second," I said, turning to Jeffrey, "we will be honest. If I feel hurt or disrespected, I am going to tell you. And you will not tell me I'm overly sensitive or that I'm making a big deal out of nothing. You will listen to me as a person, and I promise I will do the same for you. And finally, my role in this family will not be taken for granted. I am not the backup plan. I am not the system. I am a person, and I expect to be treated with the same respect and thoughtfulness that you give to anyone else you value." I let the silence sit for a moment. "This isn't a punishment," I said, my voice softer now. "This is a blueprint for a real relationship. One built on respect. I'm done being invisible. I want a family where we all get to be seen." I lean back. "That's all I have to say. The rest is up to you." I'd be lying if I said they stood up, hugged me, and said, "Mom, you're right, we're sorry." That's not how real life works. They were quiet, very quiet. I could see Diane was angry. Her jaw was tight. And Jeffrey, he just looked tired. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I think for the first time, he saw the person who was sitting in the chair, not just Mom. He nodded slowly. "Okay, Mom," he said, "we hear you." And they left. It wasn't a warm and fuzzy ending, but it was an honest one. The weeks that followed were different. The silence was broken, but it was replaced with a new, careful sort of politeness. Then, about 2 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Jeffrey. "Hey, Mom," he said, "I know this is last minute, and I totally understand if you can't, but Diane and I have a work dinner this coming Friday. We were wondering if you might be available to watch the kids." I checked my calendar. I had my book club that night. My heart was pounding. The old Bernice would have said, "Oh, of course, dear, I'll just skip my meeting. It's not important." I took a breath. "You know, Jeffrey, I'm afraid I can't this Friday. I have my book club." There was a pause. I braced myself for the sigh, the guilt trip. "Oh," he said. "Okay, no problem at all, Mom. Thanks anyway. I'll try and find a sitter. And that was it. He wasn't angry. He didn't push. He respected my no. It was a small thing, but it felt huge. It was the first brick in our new foundation. Things aren't perfect. They never are. But they're better. They're real. My last birthday, a few months ago, I got a card from Diane and Jeffrey. Inside was a gift certificate to that bistro I'd mentioned, and a handwritten note from Jeffrey. It just said, "Mom, thanks for everything you do. We see you. Love, Jeffrey." I haven't talked about the will again, and they haven't asked. It's funny, now that I have their respect. The money seems beside the point. The will was just the tool I had to use to get them to listen. I've learned to put myself first, and I've learned to do it without an ounce of guilt. I'm happier now in my own skin than I have been in 20 years. My story had a hard chapter in the middle, but I got to write the ending. And that makes me think about you, all of you watching. What would you have done if you were me? Would you have changed the will? Was that a step too far? Or would you have just let it slide, just to keep the peace? I truly want to know. Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below. We all have these stories. Maybe yours isn't about potholders, but I'm sure you felt invisible, too. Please share your stories with us. This is a community, and we need to learn from each other. If my story touched you, I'd ask you to please like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can keep sharing. It's never too late to change your story. Your time is worth it. Lastly, remember to download this wonderful book called Real Prayers for Real Life. You'll find it in the pinned comment below. Now, if you like this story, go ahead and click on the next video appearing on your screen, because in it is a story of betrayal and revolt like you've never seen before on Her Kindle Stories. Thank you for listening.